Knowledge of things and awareness of its opposite nature is necessary for the sport and play according to one's desires. In a similar way, the characteristics of Siddhi and Buddhi, who take support of Svananda Maya, engage in the play in different ways, identifying with them for endowing them with powers. Svananda Ganesh plays through them. In the end, out of his own desire, he draws in the three players of Maya, endowed with fourfold differences, into himself. That is, he gives up identification with the elements of the past. It is then that the duality of Maya, namely Siddhi and Buddhi, get dissolved with all their identity in the essence of equanimity into the form of Swanandesh. The essence of Siddhi, the essence of Buddhi, and the essence of the husband of Siddhi and Buddhi no longer remain. This is Swananda Yoga. The verse Shakto Surye Vishnu Shive Maya Abheda Buddhir Yoga means that after the actualization of Asat Swananda, marked as Shakta Brahma, and its dissolution into Saura Brahma, and in the same order after actualization of Sat, Sama and Sahaja, Swananda Brahma, marked by Surya Brahma, Vishnu Brahma and Shiva Brahma respectively, and when their completion ends in Ganesh Brahma, then Abheda Buddhi Yoga, the yoga of absolute enlightenment, that is the union of self-knowing by self, with Swananda Yoga gets totally accomplished. It is this state that is referred to as yoga. Non-differentiated yoga. Now let us look into the state of yoga that occurs the second time in the main sloka. Through that yoga, one gets the experience of that which is beyond the experience of union of the Absolute Self, meaning the actualization of beyond Tad, and which can be attained through meditative union. The pada has been described as ayoga. The experience of this state is devoid of the play of Maya. Siddhi and Buddhi are both absent, as both of them have been sacrificed. And the Ganesh who is experienced in this state is of the nature of the Atman alone and is called Ayoga Ganesh. It is impossible to describe Ayoga because it is silent in nature. After having accomplished meditative union, it means that no obstruction remains. Liberation from the experience of attained meditative union is the only thing possible here. That is why it is called Upaya Pratyaya supraconscious meditative union, the resource to experience supraconscious meditative union. Because the resource that has been instructed is liberated from the meditative union with the form of self through the experience of actualization of all kinds of abhedatmak meditative unions, that is, without differences. It is the destruction of the self-knowing of self and being firmly and regularly established in it. Since this is the nature of the experience, it is known as ayoga. In the original shloka, the words Ya Abheda Buddhir Yoga, Yoga Sa Samyakamam Mata have been repeated twice. This means that the second yoga state should be understood as ayoga, because after having talked about the totality of self-knowing and the experience of meditative union, it means that Tat Pada is absent. Therefore, it is called ayoga. This yogic spiritual practice is termed as Upaya Pratyaya supraconscious meditative union, or the experience of source in meditative union in the Yoga Shastras. The union with absolute self-knowing, the bearer of the glory of Lord Swananda, described as the first source of Atman, who is a player of the three states, the controller of Maya, who is the essence of Siddhi and Buddhi, the illuminator and source of play of Jagat Brahma and others, is called Mayamay. The essence of Ganesha is that of casting away, and that is why he is called the experience of the source of supraconscious. Subsequently, following the steps in meditative union through accomplishment of being in the experience of the forms of supraconscious meditative union, and after its dissolution, the experience is absolute yogic peace. The one who is beyond union and restraint is also described as a state in the shloka with the words Samyak Mama Mata, reiterating the whole process. The meditative union achieved through single pointedness of the mind, described as superconscious, by which the traits of ignorance of the Brahmas, of Anna, Prana, Mana, Vijnana, Ananda, and Asmita can be actualized. So, identification with the Absolute Self can actually be experienced only here. Therefore, that superconscious is called Samyak Prakarshena Nyayate Sarvam. The essence of the word superconscious is to have thorough knowledge of all souls through mind and speech alone, in a state of meditative union through single pointedness. Beyond that, there is no scope for mind and speech because both are dissolved, including the causal matter of the four states. Again, the experience of superconscious meditative union is forgotten through the spiritual practice of meditative union of the supraconscious. The supraconscious yoga of both experience of the total union of form and the experience of the absence of form through ayoga liberates the sadhak fully when he practices restraint of the restraining tendency itself. What results is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. This Yoga Sutra points to a very important instruction for attaining the absolute enlightened peace. Now you decide which yoga is agreeable to me, Sri Gajanan Prabhu tells King Varinya in conclusion. Further discussion on this experience of the resource in superconscious meditative union will be done in a later chapter. Most importantly, the glory of self-knowing in the form of total union and experience of the form in supraconscious has to be described here. Therefore, the instruction is to indicate briefly the where and how its complete end is achieved. In brief, where Purna Yoga, which is devoid of superconscious and supraconscious, is attained through meditative union in enlightened peace, there it becomes Mama Mata Yoga. If we consider total identification with the source self, then it becomes applicable to superconscious meditative union. If all imagination and absence of imagination is beyond mind and speech, then it would be known as supraconscious meditative union. But this cannot be Purna Yoga. When the duality ends completely and the restraining tendency gets dissolved, then the majesty of absolute enlightened peace is experienced. In the next audio, we shall speak about Brahmanaspati.